all, Josh here, and this is my review of the movie Sherlock Holmes, a Guy Ritchie adaptation of the infamous and iconic detective character. And I'm sure I really don't need to give much background here. Suffice to say that this time, Sherlock Holmes is up against an enemy that purportedly uses black magic. And I would have to recommend this movie. Yes. A lot of people have complained about the overdose of action. Personally, I do not see it as an overdose of action. I think it is actually just an action movie with more mystery rather than a mystery movie with action. I think that's the approach you need to take when seeing this movie because this is a blockbuster movie. It's meant to be as such. It's not going to be incredibly reflective. But you know what? For the type of movie that this is, being a blockbuster movie with big stars in the lead and costing $90 million, I thought that it really balanced out well and it really gave you enough crowd-pleasing action scenes along with really great deductions. And while the mystery I don't think is one of those ones that you could have solved on your own, frankly, most of the Sherlock Holmes stories are not that kind of thing. If you read any of the short stories, I mean, he puts it all together at the end just like he does in this movie, so I don't see any complaints, or I don't really see that many complaints being this valid, you know? As well, I also have to say that I did actually appreciate the somewhat episodic structure of the movie, wherein it wasn't all revealed at the end. There was small parts of it being revealed throughout the movie, and then at the end he would break over these small solutions into one huge solution. And it's true, it did end in more of an action climax way. I thought it built up to that well enough, and I was certainly pleased with that ending. So, like I said, I think there was a nice balance of action and mystery, and I do actually think the story of this is really quite nice. A lot of people say Moriarty is Sherlock Holmes' most or best foil as a villain, but honestly, this Lord Blackwell, I mean, what could be a better foil for Sherlock Holmes, who is pure logic, to have someone that purports to use magic? Now, I mean, that seems like a perfect dichotomy to me. Anyway, getting on to the acting, Robert Downey Jr. and Jude Law, they did actually a really fantastic job. I think the best parts of this movie are not the action scenes or even the deduction scenes. I think it is actually the bickering between Jude Law and Robert Downey Jr., Sherlock and Watson. Because, frankly, that sounds like they have known each other for quite a long time. And they know each other's weaknesses, they know what gets under each other's skin, and they're just like taunting each other like real friends would. And without being too silly sounding, this is an incredibly bromantic movie where kind of the main subplot of this movie is Watson moving out to his wife's new house in the country, and because of that, it would end his partnership with Holmes. And Holmes is naturally very upset with this and acts like he's breaking up with him pretty much. It doesn't lay it on too thick, but I really thought it added a good slice of humor to the movie. And while there was a lot of humor in this movie, I actually found none of it very offensive, unlike in such movies like Transformers Freaking 2. I thought it really didn't necessarily add to the story, but it made me like the characters better, and that's really what is the greatest part about this Sherlock Holmes adaptation. I really felt like I knew these characters by the end, and I wanted to see more of them. And the movie did seem a little bit long. While it did like the episodic structure of him constantly solving smaller mysteries, it did wear on. This movie is about 2 hours, 15 minutes long, which is not totally long, but it felt a little long. Regardless, that is a small gripe in this movie. I thought it was done really well. One thing I do have to say, though, the effects for the shipyard scene seemed kind of off. I mean, they were good, don't get me wrong, and CG London was quite excellent, but I don't know, for some reason the CG just seemed lesser in there. Maybe someone can clue me in on that. Some production problems, something. Regardless, I wanted to make special note, too, of the sets and costume design, which are each fantastic. London, as always, is a fantastic setting, or rather, old London. And the costume design is freaking fantastic. While I do say that I think there was an overabundance of random Londoners without teeth in crowd scenes, the rest of it was very well. Sherlock and Watson, all the main characters have fantastic wardrobes, look very lavish, very expensive, and they're very cool to look at. Much more flashy than you would think. It's kind of like it's not quite realistic London. It's like hyper-real fashion London, which seems or sounds like it would be more distracting than it actually is. I think it actually just really lends a big budget feel to the movie. So like I said, this movie is quite good. There's a good mystery to it, which is absolutely paramount to a Sherlock Holmes movie. There's action to please all moviegoers, There's a lot of humor, and most importantly, really, really great lead chemistry. And one thing I do have to mention is Rachel McAdams as the femme fatale for Sherlock Holmes, so as to erase any element of homoeroticism in conservative viewers' mind, is I think she's a good character. I think she may have succumbed a little bit near the end, just being a damsel in distress. But honestly, I don't really give that much of crap about her. And she could return in the next one. She could not. We'll see. Either way, she did a good role in the movie. She did bring the plot forward multiple times. Overall, she did a pretty good job. I really don't have too much complaints on her. Mark Strong as Lord Blackwood either is just, he's a great actor by the looks of it, and I've seen him in other things. He is a good actor, but he's not given a whole lot to do here. The villain is a little over the top and cartoony, but at the same time, again, it didn't bother me because I do think conceptually he's a very good villain and a perfect foil, and I did like the story behind what he's doing and how each of his. Well, I'll save that for later. Anyway, I just wanted to say mostly in summation that you really should see Sherlock Holmes because while it is kind of the action movie adaptation of Sherlock Holmes, it's not so over the top that you're just going to scream out in the middle of the theater unless you're some kind of Holmesian purist, which I am not, admittedly. So take that for what you will. It affects my opinion, of course. Not that I don't hate Sherlock Holmes, but I can't say I have read every single thing that Sir Arthur Conan Doyle wrote up on him about him. So, out of, I would say, this is probably one of the better action movies this year. It's definitely up there. It's kind of tied for Star Trek, in my opinion. Star Trek is kind of the epitome of action movies at the moment. But regardless, this is out now. If you haven't seen it, I suggest you go see it. It's a smart action movie, and you don't get too many of those nowadays. Great lead chemistry, moreover. Go see it. Sherlock Holmes.